Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening. We've got a lovely, lovely lineup today. We've got Elizabeth Devlin back, and we've got the topic under discussion is Enneagram teachers and teachings. So just to let you know what the format for this evening is going to be, Elizabeth Devlin will come on first, and she's going to be sharing some lovely other teachings with us. Then shortly after that, we'll be bringing on the individual teachers. I've got about 4 teachers here that Liz has trained over the years, including myself, actually 5. She's trained far more than that. She'll share a little bit of that with you. And each teacher will share something that's been really meaningful to them, a little bit about their journey, and just give you a broader context of the Enneagram. Then we'll be doing a general section with some Q&A. You're welcome, please, to post your questions. We will answer them during the Q&A section. And I think without further ado, I'm going to welcome on Elizabeth Devlin. Here she is. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Tanya, and welcome to whoever's listening and watching. And also, I'd like to welcome a few of my teachers who, just for information, have been with me for over 20 years. So we've worked through a lot together and we've learned a lot together, and they've participated in all the trainings and a lot of research programs, because I'm very keen on pioneering. And I love to pioneer new routes, new understandings. And these teachers of mine have worked with me over many, many, many years. So there we go.
Great. Thank you, Liz. So what are you going to share with us? Yeah, you've got something special for us. Do you want me to bring up the PowerPoint, or are you going to?
In just a moment. I think what I'd like to say first, Tanya, thank you, is that I've just got the first printing of my book, which I'd like to show you. It's called Enneagram, Ancient Stories for Modern Living. Now, these stories are from Christianity, Hinduism, Eastern traditions, Judaism, and it's book 1 of a trilogy, and it's called Through the Squint Window. And I will share more of that a little bit later. But one of the things I wanted to discuss tonight, or just for a few minutes, is that a lot of people ask, can they change their point? Can they change their position on the Enneagram? So I'd just like to clarify that with quite a complex understanding and a simple understanding. So I'll give you the complex understanding first. And this is in my book. The Enneagram represents the unfathomable understanding of the crucible within which the transformation of pure unknown forces are heated, melded, and unified into matter and form. Okay, that's quite a sentence. In this crucible, our first birth of light is spoken of as our first birth of heaven, and our second birth of the earth as human are united as one being. So let's look at this for a minute. Our first birth of light, which is often spoken of as our spirit or our soul. What is light? Light is the pattern, the power, and the potential, invisible form. This is the first birth, invisible form. The second birth of the earth is molecule, matter, and visible form, united into one being, or united as one being. So what does that mean? Let's look at an example. And Tanya, you have the image of the acorn for us.
Yes. There we go.
Thank you. So imagine an acorn. Look at the image of the acorn. What is inside that acorn? you might think an oak tree. However, not so. What lives inside an acorn is the pattern of an acorn, the power and full potential to become the most beautiful, magnificent oak tree. Inside the seed of anything and everything is the pattern, the power, and the potential to become. That's important. So where you plant an acorn determines its growth. So let's look at this for a minute. If you plant an acorn which has the pattern, the power, and the potential to become, if you plant that acorn in a vast field, when it grows, it will become the most magnificent oak tree. Healthy, strong, beautiful, magnificent. If you plant that oak tree in my back garden, you're going to get a much smaller, more contained oak tree. If you plant that acorn in a container or a pot, you are likely to get a bonsaied oak tree. Now, if you plant that acorn on a building site, you might get a gnarled, twisted, what? Always an oak tree, because you cannot have anything else but what is inside that seed. If you plant an acorn, it doesn't matter where you plant it, it will always become an oak tree. The pattern, power, and potential to become the oak never changes. It doesn't matter where you plant it. It doesn't matter the circumstances or it doesn't matter where or how you plant it. It can only become an oak tree. So under all circumstances and under all conditions, that acorn will become an oak tree. Now it's exactly the same for us, exactly the same. I need to see, what is my pattern? What is your pattern? We are not determined by our circumstances or the conditions within which we live. Our culture, religion, education, gender, socioeconomic background may determine how we express our pattern, power, and potential, but will not determine who we are. So just like the acorn, inside of me and inside of you is the pattern, power, and potential to become who you were designed and created to be. Nothing else. Regardless of your race, color, creed, gender, you will always become who you've designed and created to be. So, how can the Enneagram help me with this? Well, the Enneagram can show me, and especially with a trained teacher, somebody who has been trained to profile and who has worked with the Enneagram for many, many years, they are trained to understand patterns. They are trained to pick up power and potential within the individual, and they can help you find your pattern, power, and potential. So it's not like you're an acorn and you're going to become a rosebush, or you plant a mustard seed and you're going to expect an aloe. You cannot be other than who you are designed and created to be. And you're not likely to change. In fact, you can't change. An acorn can't become anything other than an oak tree. And I cannot become anything other than my design. So we do not change and we cannot change. And I think a trained Enneagram teacher can help us find our authentic self, our true self, our essence, whatever name we call it. Maybe our soul, maybe our spirit. It doesn't really matter. But we need to let go, absolutely surrender all the rubble of social expectations, religious expectations, cultural expectations that are imposed on us. We need to work through that to find our deep essence or our deep essential self. So that's a question that I hope I've answered, that a lot of people query. Oh, but I used to be this and now I'm that. Not possible. You are who you are, who you've been designed and created to be.
I love that, Liz. It's actually quite comforting to know that we can't, change into something completely different. We just need to go deeper. We need to understand our pattern. And as you say, know that we are a gift to be given and not a problem to be solved.
Can I just add, we can change our behavior, 100%. We can all change our behavior. That belongs to the second birth. The first birth is the pattern. The second birth is the human. We can change our behavior, totally, but we're not going to change our pattern.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. You had two different oak trees then. I think you were just trying to make that point that whether it's this oak tree or that oak tree or something completely different, the pattern is the same.
Yes.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you. So, Liz, I'm going to be welcoming on then the first of your teachers that we're going to introduce tonight, and I'm going to let you introduce her. Melita.
Melita. Welcome, Melita.
Hi, Liz. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Melita. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to discuss a little bit more about what Liz was saying. I love her analogy of the power, the pattern, and the potential, because I've been teaching for, over 20 years, as Liz said. And my passion is to open up the power within other people and within ourselves. So it's not about telling you who you are and how you should behave. It's about, who are you? What are you? An oak? Are you a poppy? Are you a rose bush? What are you? And then the important thing, a question that often comes up is, how important is it to know your type in depth? And to me, that's the whole point. You can get lost in whatever everybody else says. In our relationships, you learn a little bit about the Enneagram, and then you say, oh, well, I'm sure my husband's this or my children are that. The minute we start looking outside of ourselves, we end up losing ourselves. It's just so much easier to just go out and look at who else is doing what instead of finding our inner power. I speak about there's wisdom in your hairdryer. So I'm a body type. So when I'm standing mindlessly drying my hair, all kinds of things come up, and it's really boring. But the stuff that comes up is really important for my day. So I like to say to the students that I teach, what is your hairdryer? Where is the moment in your day where your true self comes forward? And what is your hairdryer saying? Because we all have one. So if we understand our type in depth, it means we can access the potential of who we actually are, the pattern, the power. We access that potential. And the potential of each Enneagram type is so incredibly deep and amazing that I don't think in one lifetime you're ever going to get to the bottom of it all. So understanding who I am allows me to shine and shine a light on whatever shadows I might have. An analogy that I like to use is if you rent a home, you could, sometimes you can't, but you could paint the walls, you could put up your curtains, you could change the furniture, make it look pretty. Aesthetically, it looks nicer, better, more you-ish. But you can't move the door, and you can't change the window, and you can't close in the patio. You can't make any structural changes until you buy that house, until you own that home. And then those structural changes are yours to be made, to modify for yourself. So who we are is not a mistake. We aren't broken. We don't need to be fixed. But we do need to look at the potential of who we actually are. So to me, it's absolutely vital that you work with your core type. And we cannot type anybody else. You can't really type your husband or your children or your mother-in-law or anybody. You really can't, because you don't know their intention. Their behavior might be a certain type, but is it truly that type? And the minute you try and do that, you lose yourself, because you're not looking at your own stuff. So yeah, that's my passion, to empower people, to allow them to unfold the potential inside of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melita. I think that's a lovely analogy, and I completely agree with what you've said, because as you say, if you're typing somebody else, you're actually looking at external behavior. You're not actually, you don't know what's going on internally for that person. And as Elizabeth has taught us for many, many years, we can all do the same behavior, but from a different internal space. So we can't just look outside there to the external behavior.
Exactly, and the integrity of the Enneagram to me is vitally important, that gets upheld, and that Elizabeth taught us as well. So
Yeah.
we've had lots of
Thank you.
teaching.
Okay, great. We're going to be welcoming you back just now in the general section, but we're now going to bring on Jayshree McCann, another teacher. Thank you, Melita. See you shortly.
Okay, cheers.
Thanks. That was lovely, hey, Elizabeth?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Here comes Jayshree.
Here comes Jay.
Hi,
Welcome.
Tanya, Liz, and everyone listening. And thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here. And I thought, Tanya, when you asked me to share a little bit, I thought perhaps I'll talk about, firstly, what the Enneagram means to me, but rather bring it to present day in this pandemic time, and just the observations during this period. So I think the one phrase that really resonates with me is ancient wisdom for modern healing. And I really like that phrase. I know from Indian philosophy that there's a cyclical nature of energy, and it overlapped beautifully with the Enneagram. And I was really drawn to it because it was this wonderful, powerful, intricate map. And it really acknowledged spiritual aspects, which I've always been drawn to. So it really served as a great tool of self-understanding and a great language for self-knowledge for myself, and also to appreciate the different languages of others. I also recognize that it's an unfolding journey and definitely not a fixed truth. I love the dynamism of the system and that the movement is constant. It also made me very aware of my defensive natures and also some of my habitual behaviors. And while I recognized that, I also understood that predictability made me seem so efficient, but I also recognized that it also made me very stuck and quite rigid. And I think that was just like a survival tool, if you want to call it that. But it really opened up a whole different way of my self-understanding. And I think it's been a great growth tool. In learning, I was then able to let go. And I think in softening those lines, I developed more empathy, firstly for myself, more compassion. And I think this was really very true now with the pandemic, with all this global happenings and all the stress. I realized how quick that rigidity came back, especially in the stressful situation. And how it just narrowed my focus, and I wasn't able to see bigger pictures at, especially in the beginning of the lockdown when everything was so uncertain. But again, just remembering to be empathetic to myself so that I could reduce this anxiety. I could then become a little bit more self-efficient, and I believe it's very good for your immunity, by the way. And also the fact that I very easily forget myself, and really see to other people's needs. And I've learned through my understanding of validating that through that awareness and through that empathy and compassion for myself, I was able to give it more out to others. And also in this time, I think the interconnectedness, which I know the Enneagram really endorses, and that we're all interconnected, and just being part of a community and the support that you experience with this community spirit was absolutely wonderful. And I know that my depth of understanding really came through that journey with the Enneagram. So for now, that's what I'd like to share.
Thank you, Jayshree. Thank you so much for sharing that. Elizabeth, do you want to comment or add anything further?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Thanks, Jay. So we're going to be bringing you on shortly. I loved hearing about that community spirit. So, bring Jay on just now, and we'll hear some more just now. Thank you, Jay. So the next teacher that we're going to be introducing you all to is Pam. So I'm going to bring her in. Pam, I think your mic is muted. Okay, I think maybe what we can do is I'm going to Pam. I think we'll check on you just now. Maybe if you can just follow up on your mic, and I think maybe then we'll check on Sylvia. Okay, so to all the viewers out there, we've had a lot of technological issues in South Africa lately, Wi-Fi problems, electrical storms, load shedding, all sorts of drama. So we're doing the best we can under the circumstances. One of our teachers, in fact, one of the teachers who trained alongside me, Sylvia van Sale, would have been live with us this evening, but unfortunately she can't be. But we have got her on video. So I'm going to bring her in via video. So just a little bit of an introduction to Sylvia. She's a minister, and she's also a teacher of the Enneagram. She's been very, very interested in George Ivanovich Gurdjieff. I hope I pronounced his name correctly, Elizabeth. Is that correct?
Yep.
George Ivanovich Gurdjieff, who was a man who introduced the Enneagram to the West in 1916, and he wrote a magnus opus called Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson. So very interesting, very amazing man, very alive and larger than life. So Sylvia began a very long interest in this because, as I say, he did introduce the Enneagram to the West. So she says, while most South Africans were following the Soccer World Cup in 2010, Sylvia travelled to Massachusetts to experience the Gurdjieff work in practice. She signed up for a 40-day Gurdjieff Intensive Retreat at a center near Royalton, Massachusetts in America. And from January to June 2010, so that's a full 6 months, participants attended a weekly online WebEx meeting where the basics of the fourth way, which is what Gurdjieff's teaching is called, is explored. And this intensive was attended by more than 30 individuals, ranging in age from 21 to 65. The daily activities included meditation, sacred dances, singing, lectures of Gurdjieff ideas, practical work such as gardening, building planters. I'm just going to bring on, she gave me a picture. This is them at work. Doing construction work, arts, crafts, taking turns to cook meals and bake bread for the group, and housekeeping. The day started at 6 o'clock in the morning and ended around 10 o'clock at night. Sylvia describes this as a life-changing experience which continues to offer new horizons to be explored and lived. So we're going to just have a few words from Sylvia. Let me just get that up and going.
There's no audio. Tanya? There's no audio. You need to reshare the screen with audio. There's no audio on there.
Oh, sorry, I believe the audio is not working. Just hold on a moment. I'm just going to reshare. Just hold on a moment and I shall be with you shortly. Liz, if you can keep us entertained while I sort this out.
Well, I would like to say that one of my favorite things to do in the Enneagram is to sit with a new student and do some profiling work. I love Helen Palmer and David Daniels taught us the most amazing set of questions, and which we can ask a new student, well, any student, and you are taught to observe. Well, number one is always stay in your belly. If you're in your head, you're thinking. If you're in your heart, you're feeling. Stay in the empty belly, and then that person, their pattern begins to become visible to you, and you can observe the facial expression, the muscular movements, the tension in the body or the lack of tension. You can observe the whole physical body language, and you're not judging or determining anything. But when you observe that from a free and open space, the point comes alive. And that's the most magical time for me, to actually see the pattern and the potential of that soul emerging amidst the rubble of everything that we are trained to do and trained to say and all those types of things. So I think that's one of the most exciting things for me, is to sit with a new student and do a profiling session.
Thanks, Liz. Let's see if I've got this up and going again. And,
a waking up to what's going on around us, which we're very good at because the TV and all sorts of social media informs us. But more importantly, we need to be aware of what's going on inside of us. What are we thinking? What mood do we find ourselves in? What things are we doing mechanically, automatically? Too easily we fall asleep to ourselves. We might consider and develop an awareness practice to remind ourselves to be present to ourselves in the moment. For example, like coming home, when you're driving up the driveway and heading to the front door and putting your key in the door and opening it, saying to myself, I am home. I am now in my sacred place. Or perhaps when you brush your teeth twice or thrice a day, you could be reminding yourself, I am here brushing my teeth or washing dishes or whatever activity, habitual or other, you might be going through. Remember that energy follows attention. So whatever we are giving our attention to, whether it is catching coronavirus, or whether it is swimming in the sea. Whatever we give our mind and our emotions to is likely to be manifest in our lives. The second aspect that's important is acceptance. So now we are aware of what's going on within ourselves and in the world, and the important thing then is to accept what is, to go a non-resistant line. Just observe and see what's going on. Open your heart to accept what is happening in the moment, reserving reactivity based on previous experiences or information, and be kind to yourself. The third practice is appreciation. Frequently expressing gratitude can bring great experiences into our lives. Appreciation is there for the opportunities and challenges that are in our life all the time. And we are grateful, whether they are good experiences or not, because they do come to teach us. Gratitude is a powerful and magnetic energy. The fourth practice is having a practice and being aware of conscious action. So the practice routine that we can set up for ourselves would include meditation, reading inspiring literature, not sort of things that are making you go to bed frightened. We can listen to uplifting podcasts on Wi-Fi and having discussions with like-minded friends. The fifth idea is about support. We seek and maintain connection with like-minded others. This gives us support. We find a mentor if we're fortunate. We can attend their classes or workshops that support our choice to grow in consciousness. And sixth is adherence or commitment. Here we need to maintain a focused and committed course of action that serves our highest good, and be responsible to yourself and your aspirations. It's important to realize that attending 1 or 2 workshops, particularly if they're short workshops, do not really give you a full opportunity to mine the jewels that the Enneagram have to offer us. Remember that no teacher or life coach or Enneagram test or profiling interview can tell you who you truly are. No one other than you knows who you are and what you are. No one can see what's going on inside, and very often it's very difficult to articulate about it. So there you have it. Awareness, acceptance, appreciation, a practice like meditation, and having friends or family to support you in your process. I am currently working at the Association of Creative Thought, where I use the foundation of the Enneagram, and it is a profound foundation that I have. And I use this along with the teachings of divine science. I find this very helpful. I find them complementary. I serve at the ACT Center intentionally. I do so with full commitment. I take responsibility for my own growth and offer my support to the community of the church and even beyond. This is my joy. This is my reason for living.
That was lovely. Few little technical glitches, but I think in the whole, I hope you got the message that Sylvia was trying to convey about that beautiful self-awareness, self-acceptance, support. And what was the fourth point, Liz?
Well, always the practice,
appreciation,
support and practice.
And the practice.
Appreciation, yes.
There we go.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Lovely. So we're now going to welcome on Pam. I think hopefully her audio is sorted out. here is Pam. Hi, Pam.
Good evening. Good evening,
Hello,
Tanya.
Pam.
Hello, Liz.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. As Liz said, I met Liz about 20 years ago. It was a point in my life where I had lots of questions. I didn't know where I fitted in, how I belonged in the bigger scheme of things, and the lines were very, very blurred. And I was very fortunate to have met Liz and done the studies of the Enneagram. Entering into the Enneagram studies with Liz gave me permission to allow certain thoughts, certain feelings. Exploring the Enneagram was really, really fascinating. Being able to identify certain aspects of myself within each type. After a lot of self-observation and awareness, I could identify my pattern. Now, the experience was a combination of excitement, relief, and also a bit of sadness, because I discovered how I had been setting myself up and also created many roadblocks for myself and others. So, understanding myself and others has allowed me to be free of my own restrictions and open up to others with a deeper understanding of why we reacted differently. My favorite was when Liz presented us with stories, because we would all go home and come back doing our homework and interpret the story very, very differently. Each person, from each point, was so interesting because it was all different, but yet it was all very valuable. This brought into my awareness that there is no right or wrong. Each point is very valuable. Sorry, my eyes are not doing too well. This transferred into my day-to-day life with regards to my family and my friends. I no longer have the need to justify, correct, or be approved from anyone else's point of view to make me feel at peace. Peace lives within me. So I observe and I rest in my peace. I'm going to just end this off with a little short paragraph from Jamie Sams. It says, "The awakening dream embodies our earthly forms, and within the sacred pattern, the consciousness and the universe transforms." And my personal experience with the Enneagram has been very enriching. Thank you very much for this platform, Tanya. It was lovely seeing you, Liz, and all the other teachers.
Thank you very much, Pam. See you shortly.
Lovely to see you too.
Thanks. Great. So we've had 4 different teachers. I am also one of the teachers. I trained alongside Sylvia. I was introduced to the Enneagram by a dear friend who lived in Port Elizabeth at the time, and she did colour therapy. And she told me about this amazing lady, Elizabeth Devlin, and this amazing system. And I just had to go and investigate further because I was intrigued. I wanted to learn more. So I went to go and visit Elizabeth, and I think this was around about 1996, 97, somewhere around there. And she did a profiling interview on me, and it made me really want to find out more, because from what I could hear, from what I was experiencing, it really had a lot of insight. So I went on quite a few of the Enneagram workshops, and then about 2007, I decided to start my Enneagram training with Elizabeth. So I really have enjoyed the process so far. It inspired me so much, I decided to even go further and study my psychology undergraduate degree and complete my master's. And I think it just has opened up a whole world to me that I really use a lot of the time in working with some of my clients, because it helps me to understand some of the patterns, especially when they are aware and observing them themselves. It's also helped me a lot in terms of my family relationships and my colleagues, because as I understand it, if we understand ourselves, if we understand our patterns, we take responsibility then for what's going on internally. We stop blaming the other. We stop assuming they know what's going on inside me, because I know what's going on inside me. And if I go within and investigate, then I can become more self-aware, and I can then enrich my relationships, and I can perhaps solve conflicts easier. It doesn't mean to say the conflicts will go away. They won't go away at all. But it helps me in terms of knowing that there's not one right way, and there's different perspectives on this, on the problem. So by understanding me and understanding the other one, I can perhaps become more, what's the word, just more accepting. So I think that's a little bit about what I wanted to include with the Enneagram. So thank you, Liz. I think it's really been an amazing journey, and I'm very grateful to have learned the Enneagram with you. So we're going to bring on everybody now, and then this is going to be the general section. So we're going to be going through a few questions. If you've got any questions at home, please put them on. We will answer them together with everybody else. I've got Melita coming in, Jay, Shri, Pam. Here we go. So ladies, I think the first question, let me just hold of that we were wanting to ask, is how can only 9 different types describe everyone? I know, Liz, that you have spoken a little bit about this earlier, but would you like to add a little bit more in terms of how, because that's something that everybody asks, you know, am I going to be put in a box? There's so many people in the world. How can only 9 types describe everybody?
Okay, well, I think I'd say what I've said before is we're not little tin soldiers in little tin boxes. We are incredible human beings, absolutely incredible. And you spoke about Gurdjieff before, and George Ivanovich Gurdjieff spoke about there's only 3 points, there's only 3 types. And that is 9, 6, and 3. That's the inner triangle. And when you look at, you see, you've got to look at it from a very different perspective. And in Christianity, you've got the Holy Trinity, which tri means 3. And you've got faith, hope, and charity, upon which the religion is based. And in Hinduism, you've got the Trimurti, which is creation, destruction, and preservation. And Galileo speaks about the triangle, the different 3 types of energy. So 3 is the core number throughout religion, throughout science, throughout everything. 3 is the core number. And it's from that 3 that everything flows. And when the 9, when we reach a point which is too complicated to the law of 3, it's too complicated to go into now, but when that explosion happens, when that extension happens, 9 extends to 8 and 1, creating points 8 and 1. Point 6 extends, creating 5 and 7. And point 3 extends, creating 2 and 4. And these are but 9, 6, and 3 are the core points. So we've actually got 9. And again, throughout all religions and everything, 9 is a core number. And 9 will explain, because it's not about behavior. And this we need to repeat endlessly. It's got nothing to do with behavior. It's got to do with your internal pattern. And it's too long a story to go into right now.
Yeah,
But I hope
think that's a lovely
started a process.
Thank you, Liz. I think that was beautifully said. So I'm going to, did anybody want to add anything on before we move on to the next question? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. So the next question is, why is it important to get a good understanding of your core points? And I think Melita was going to take this question. Why is it important to get a good understanding?
Thanks, Tanya. I covered a little bit of it in the initial my opening. As Liz says, the core point of the 3, 6, and 9 belongs to all of us in a way. We all we have access to all of it. But if we get so focused on our behavior, we miss who we actually are. So it's really vital to understand your core point and understand what the pillars are that support us. And the core point has so many amazing levels of development, of growth. You'll slide away in a day between them, depending on how stressful you are. I think it's also important for us to remember that we become more stuck in our type the more stressed we are. So the more you're aware of what your point is, the vices, the virtues, the shadows, the gifts, the more aware we are of that particular core type of who I am, where your power and potential lies, and your pattern. The more you know that, the more you realize in your daily life and your behavior and your connection with other people how much you are in a stress related. How much am I sticking to my stuff instead of being allowed to just let it go? And I think Pam mentioned the freedom that comes with actually understanding your core type and not getting confused with the behavior. So it doesn't matter where the oak tree is planted. You need to know that it's an oak within you. So I think that's important because it can get really confusing. There are all kinds of other things that come in and it blurs the value of the Enneagram, I think.
Sure. Thank you, Melita. Thank you for making that point. I think.
Can I add something?
Clear. Yeah.
Thank you, Melita. It was very helpful to me when it was like I dropped into my center. When I actually found my core, it was like, oh my goodness, it was the same with my predominant instinct. It's like I dropped into myself and I really found myself. So yes, 100%.
Thank you. Great. So we're going to be moving on to another question now. Unless anybody else out there has got questions, please remember to post them on the comments section and we will gladly look at answering them. So the next question is to Jay. What is the value of knowing your predominant energy center?
So thanks, Tanya. I realized that the word energy evokes quite a lot of different responses. And, well, you know, Einstein said energy was neither created nor destroyed, but it can be changed. And similarly, as Liz alluded to earlier, through Indian philosophy, once again, we've got creation, preservation, and destruction. So I just am so drawn to that, the fact that these universal truths are all there. And the fact that the Enneagram describes the energy centers as the mental, the emotional, and the physical really made a lot of sense to me. Because it's described as portals of awareness and how we can predominate in a certain energy center, and that we could use this awareness in creating a sense of balance. So as an example, if you find yourself in a more mental energy predominance, or the way you experience the world, you'll be a thinker and you'll be quite logical and you'll be drawn to facts and figures and that sort of thing. And as Melita said, we do become a little bit more our type when we're under strain. So it's a good time to really observe this. And once we become aware of that, then we are able to loosen those restrictions. So for example, a mental energy could be neutralized or lessened by going for a run. So getting into the body allows the physical energy to come into play, and in so doing lessen the overactivity in the mental center. And that is true for all the others. So in the emotional center, similarly, and for the physical, one could access the heart through writing, through art, through reading, and emotional centers can access once again the body or the mental centers. So I've found in understanding these energy centers as a good tool, once again to access a little more knowledge about oneself, how we in the world, and also to value it as a gift. And also lastly, just to make sure that we do understand we all have all three. We're not saying either one is better or worse. We all have access to everything. But through awareness, we can open up these centers of intelligence. Essentially, they're centers of intelligence. So once again, to access deeper knowledge, to access ways of opening up these stuckness or restrictions. So I really love that about the Enneagram. In fact, more than the types and everything else, I've always been drawn to these three centers because it makes complete sense to me.
Thank you, Jayashree. I see Elizabeth has muted herself. Liz, can you add anything there to what Jay had to say?
Fine. No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. And Melita, anything else to add?
No, I think I agree with Jay. It's the three centers are really incredible, and when you realize where your energy comes from, it's so much easier to understand it and to use it, and because it's there for all of us, it's there all the time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jay. I think following on from what both you and Melita shared, I just wanted to touch again on the stress and secure points of our core Enneagram point, because it flows on quite nicely. And Joshi, you just spoke about the stress, what happens under stress, and obviously then conversely when we are secure. So just to go back a little bit, there is a whole section on this. Elizabeth has done a whole, one evening was devoted to this. So if you want to go back to one of those sessions, you can hear what Elizabeth had to say. But just briefly, our core point on the Enneagram has got a mental center, and we have certain thinking habitual patterns that happen on a day-to-day basis. Certain filters where we screen out certain information and focus on other key information. We also have an emotional center with habitual predominant feelings that our particular core Enneagram point has more than other feelings. And then we also have an instinctual center with habitual gut responses or habitual sensations, physical responses in the body, that kind of go along on our day-to-day basis, and we get stuck in routines. I think both Jayashree and Melita also touched on that. We get stuck in routines and habitual patterns of our core point, and obviously our core point has got the gifts and the virtues, but there are certain predominant feelings and thoughts and gut responses that we become used to. So when stress occurs, as it does in life, we actually go deeper, as Jayashree pointed out. Our core point actually kind of re-emphasizes those certain patterns, those mental patterns, those emotional patterns, and the gut responses. But when the stress goes further and it actually overwhelms us, it actually kind of, I want to say, and Liz can correct me if I'm wrong, but our habitual defenses to life, actually we don't quite know how to deal with it, because it's actually exhausted our usual way of responding to life. So another point on the Enneagram becomes available, and with that other point on the Enneagram, there will be different thinking patterns, there will be different feeling patterns, there will be different instinctual responses that we actually can now utilize as part of our coping mechanisms to respond to the stress that we weren't able to deal with from our core Enneagram point. That point then becomes known as our stress, our stress point, but Liz has beautifully termed them our 2 pillars of support. So we've got 1 point on the Enneagram that opens up to us under these stressful conditions. And then conversely, when everything's going beautifully, when the job is going wonderfully, when life settles down, when we are happy in relationship, when finances are secure, another point on the Enneagram opens up, again with some other thinking patterns that we aren't particularly used to, some other feeling patterns, and some other gut responses. So we've got these 2 core pillars of support that support our core Enneagram point and allows diversity. This actually encourages quite a bit of I want to say movements to deal with life, to deal with changing circumstances, to deal with overwhelming stress that we might not have actually been able to cope with in our core Enneagram point. Liz, would you like to, I know this is a lovely topic of yours, would you like to add something more to that?
I don't think so, Tanya. I just think in one of my classes, I've got a couple of psychologists, and they have said that these pillars of support have changed the whole way of thinking and feeling and responding with regard to the Enneagram, because they've really understood now the gift that these pillars offer to them. And it's not about it's about integrating these. So let's take point 1 just as an example. Point 1's 2 pillars would be 7 and 4. They're the 2 lines. You can follow the lines on the Enneagram diagram. And when point 1 has integrated aspects of point 4, which is heart, they'll become a softer point 1. And when they've integrated aspects of point 7, they'll become less rigid with more options. So it's about integrating both these pillars and becoming more of yourself. It's not becoming closed down, it's expanding. So you haven't got a clear judgmental 1. You've got a 1 with a lot of heart and with an open mind in the body. So these 2 pillars are really there to help us integrate and become more. Soften the point, yes, by integrating more.
Wow, thank you for that, Liz. Anybody else want to add in something? We haven't got any more questions, and we are on 1 minute to 8. Unfortunately, Pam had problems with her connection, so she's not here to say goodbye to us all. But before we round up and say cheerio, let's just go around and maybe just say, how did this process work? Did you enjoy it, Liz?
Yes, it's very interesting. It's a little bit scary when it's live, but yes.
Yeah,
it was
definitely.
super. So, and thank you, Tanya and Gary, for organizing it, and to Melita and Jay, and to Sylvia, and Elaine. There's hope. There's always hope.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. At point 3, there's always hope. Well, everywhere, Elaine.
Yeah, I think
So,
that's
yes.
a lovely point. Lovely point, because actually that's also what you said, Liz, with the pillars of support. By integrating
Yes.
it actually brings hope.
Absolutely. Then we're not stuck and rigid. We're still the same point, because point 1 brings wholeness with integrity. So the pattern, the power and potential, is wholeness, and that's seen in the human as integrity. But is it integrity with heart and an open mind, which is the 7 and the 4? Or is it, what is it? So again, it's softening and opening and softening and opening. Also point 8, which is also body, when they can access and bring the 2 space, which is an open heart, and point 5, which is, let's think about this, not just act, which is something we've all spoken about in various ways. When we can integrate that, then you've got a really fabulous 8 that is full of heart and they can think things through as well as taking action. So then we become, I think, whole, if that's possible.
Absolutely. Thank you. So yes, I think that's lovely. There's no more questions. For me, it's been an amazing journey to actually take you through the different sessions, Liz. I really hope that people will go back and watch them. I think they're going to be there in perpetuity. So I think so I think it's going to be a lovely teaching tool and a lovely way that people can explore a little bit more about the Enneagram. And that's really, I think, why I wanted to do this, especially during lockdown. So that people have something to kind of, they might have heard about it, they might be intrigued, they might be able to go and explore a little bit more. We've got lovely teachers here in the Bay. Elizabeth does a lot of teaching, so does Melita. Jayshree, I know, has from time to time, but she uses it more in her work, I think, at the moment. And for myself, I also use it mostly in my work and obviously in my own personal private life. So I hope this has been of value to everybody. Melita, anything you want to say to end off with?
No, I think it has been lovely to watch you, the two of you, each week, and the topics. I mean, the topics we know because we've been trained well, but it's been really nice to rehear things, and it just makes you remember something you might have forgotten. I think if you'd asked me to do this 6 months ago, I would never have done it, but COVID has had some benefits, and we've all learnt about Zoom and the media. So it has been lovely, and technology, and so it has been really good. Yeah. Teaching in person is way more preferable because you get the feedback from the students and the participants, which is fabulous. As Liz says, when you watch it unfold, I refer to it as Oprah's aha moment. You actually just see somebody like opening in front of you, and it's like an Easter egg. You think, oh God, that's so beautiful. So that is preferable to me. But I'm enjoying the Zoom sessions. It's been interesting. Business wise, a couple of small businesses doing it. It's also nice. So, and my forte in business wise is family businesses because it throws a whole new dynamic. You've got the family and their stuff, and then you've got them all working together. So yeah, it's really been interesting. Thanks very much, Tanya, for putting it together, and thanks to Gary and Liz. Yeah, it was great.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Pam. She's got a message there. Lovely to see you all. And Jayshree, anything you want to add in?
Just want to say thanks, Tanya. I know what goes into these virtual platforms, so thank you for persevering and opening it up. It is the way of the future. And I think just as everybody was speaking, I just wanted to say that I have such deep respect for the system, and that I feel very strongly about it not being diluted and being trivialized, and also the fact that there are obviously many maps and many tools and many routes of self-discovery, and that the Enneagram must be seen as one of those, but also must be appreciated for its depth of its teachings. And many people want to get the quick fix and just give it to me and tell me what I am, and and I think the biggest message for me personally, so I've tried to make this very personal, tonight, where I've been speaking about my own experience, is that the value and the beauty of the system was to allow it to slowly, as you said, unfold. And so I'd just like to highlight that again, and also to say that in our training, we are trained to know our limitations. We have to recognize when people need professional assistance in the form of psychology or other things. And I think that's also another important point, is that we are trained to recognize when we are out of our depth. And I think that's also important as teachers. So thanks again for having me, and I appreciate the platform.
Thank you. Thanks, Joshi. Thank you to all of you for coming on and braving the technology and braving this new way of introducing something that we all love and it's special to all of us. So thank you for embracing the challenge.
So Tanya, what's planned for next Thursday?
Liz says she needs a holiday. So nothing yet, but I do think I have already started making murmurs about bringing her on in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. We're hoping to button down a date where she can tell us about her new book, and I think that'll be very nice. But we'll see how that works. And then it'll be nice every so often to do regular, maybe a monthly little chat about a discussion. So Melita and Jay, put your thinking caps on and think about what you could share. I think we could share there's such a vast topic. We really have only scratched the surface with what we've presented here. So I think, a lovely little monthly discussion would be lovely.
Lovely.
Okay.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you, Tanya.
So thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Cheers, Jay.
Bye-bye.